I'm charged with, my name's James Hunt. I'm charged with introducing our first speakers, our keynote speakers today. And the first time Deanne and I were able to attend one of their marriage seminars was around 8 years ago, almost a decade ago here in town, and have continued to try to participate along or help sponsor or bring groups to some awareness of what they can offer. And you've got their little bio on the bottom of your sheet. There are a couple of points I really want to make about that. They've been married 32 years, so they've been in the game a long time, and they've lived the life we live, and they walk the walk we walk. God bless them, they got 6 kids. I don't know why they would have some and then seek to go get some more, but they did that. And one of their oldest, 25-year-old Micah, has special needs. So they live the stuff that people like us or people like my family live. Stark realities, and without stepping on Jared, he's probably going to share some of that with you. You know, the numbers of children with special health care needs in Arkansas and across the nation average about 14% of the population. Now, that's physical and intellectual disability range. But it works out that if you just figure 1 in 10 children in Arkansas have a special needs, that means roughly that about 1 in 5 families in Arkansas live a life with special needs. It might as well be 1 in a million, because most of my friends and family members don't know what we live every day. The isolation that comes along with that, the chronic sorrow that comes along with that, the pieces that my wife and I struggle to accomplish, struggle to share, struggle to keep building as a team over time. So it does. What's important from the perspective of Jared and Marissa that are going to come speak here in just a second is that they share the struggles we struggle, and the language barriers that we encounter, and they've been spending the last decade trying to build ways for us to help each other to get through some of that. So hear them out, Mr. and Mrs. Almquist.
Well, it was 1986, and I had spotted this good-looking young lady walking around campus. She looked really good in a black skirt, and I remember talking to my buddy, and I said, "Do you know her?" I said, "She really looks good from behind." And so I set off to do my homework, my recon, because, you know, I don't know if you ladies know this or not, but some of us guys, we got to do recon because we don't want to fail. You know, you don't walk in knowing that you're going to be, you know, said no to. So I found out who her friends were, kind of where she lived, whether or not she knew who I was, you know, that kind of thing. And got to the point where I finally asked her out. And so we went out on our first date. I called her up. I said, "Hey," and we were just going to go over to the coffee shop on campus there and just have a Coke. And it wasn't dinner or anything. It was just, it says a little bit about who I am. It's just simple. We're just going to have a Coke. So we went over there and sat down. And 3 hours later, it's now like after 11 o'clock at night, we stopped talking and decided we probably should go home and go to bed and get ready for the next day. And have you ever had that experience where you don't know somebody, basically a complete stranger, but you start talking and you start hearing a little bit of each other's story, and there's just a connection, and you go, "Oh, that's cool." You ever experienced that? Why is it that feels so good? Why does that feel so good? Anybody?
People, they will look familiar experiences.
Yep. Familiar experiences. It feels good because you're going, don't you feel like, oh, somebody else thinks the way I think. Someone else has experienced or enjoys experiences the same way, the same things that I experience. Or when you really get down to it, as I've thought about it, it feels like it validates who you are. You're going, I'm not the only one who thinks that way, who feels that way, who enjoys those things. And so there's this connection. So when I look around this room, we've been doing this for almost 10 years. And what I find is that getting a group of people together in a room like this, that's what happens. I mean, look around. If you felt alone before you came, then you shouldn't feel alone now. Because look who's here. We're all here, and we're not alone. And so that gives us a sense that, you know what, we're not alone doing this, and we feel good about doing it. So it becomes more when we have shared experiences and language. And so what we're going to do is, over the next few minutes here, what I'm going to do, attempt to do, is to get some shared experiences, some shared language that we can have so that we can understand some of the things that we're all going through. So the first way I'm going to do that is we're going to go through some key concepts, okay? Some key realities that we have found are really important. Now, when I share these with you, I'm going to share them with you kind of in real time, but I want you to know that in our experience, we adopted Micah when he was 19 days old. He's now 21, okay? We learned these things, went through them, and later was able to look back and put some words to them, to label them, okay? You're going to get the benefit of that, right? We didn't have that benefit when we did it. And the second thing is Marisa and I are going to share some of our story and how those concepts, how accepting those realities have helped us get through some really, really tough times in the 32 years that we've been married. So as you've heard and read, Micah is 4 of 6 kids. So we moved down from Minnesota with 3 kids. We ended up adopting 3 more. Micah was the first of those kiddos. And it started out, I guess as most family additions start out, in a mom's heart. Okay? So as you can tell, I'm not afraid to cry. Okay? And this is our life that I'm sharing with you. And I get to relive it while we're doing this stuff. So Micah was he was in foster care with a couple that's in our small group. And they had brought him numbers of times to our small group, and they were talking, saying, how long are you going to have him? Do they have a home for him? And she said, no, they don't. They're having a hard time finding a placement. And I found this story out later, but Marisa was holding me at the time this conversation was going on, and she said in her heart and mind, she said, he hasn't been placed yet because he's supposed to be ours. You go, oh, how does that happen? Well, it did. So the next thing was we got the call. Hey, you guys, we weren't even in the adoption process. We got a call and said, hey, you've been nominated to say you'd be a good family for this kid. The excitement, I remember it, the excitement of adding a new kid to our family. Marisa and I did a special run to Target. We didn't have any kids. Our youngest kid was 6 years old. We didn't have anything left. Then in the first couple of years of speech delay and knowing something wasn't totally right, but didn't know. We knew something was going on, but we were just kind of being parents, doing the best we could. And then the next stage of when the wheels came off. And that's when we first experienced the first concept that we're going to talk about today. And that was that we were suffering a loss. And each of us have suffered a loss. Okay? Our culture hasn't done a good job of teaching us how to go through difficult things. Okay? Our culture wants to minimize things. We sculpt the world. It doesn't take long to look around where people are trying to sculpt the world where there's as little discomfort, pain, anything that's difficult, they try to extinguish from the life. But that isn't how life goes. And by not recognizing and dealing with these things, with things like loss, is that they can fester and they can affect us in so many ways. So this loss, this death of a dream, comes in two major points that we've learned. And the first one is this, and that is we have missed expectations. Another way of saying it is, this isn't the way it was supposed to be. You ever felt that? This isn't, and I don't know when it hit you, because it hits us at a different place, because every parent plays a movie in their mind of when they're getting a new kid, or their family is growing, and they start playing out what it's going to be like for them to grow up and to, go to school for the first time and all these different kinds of things. And then all of a sudden something hijacks that. And I remember with Micah, when this was happening, and as he got up closer to 5, and I'll talk about what happened between 2.5 and 5 that in a little bit. But we were asking the question, will Micah ever go to school? Will Micah have the ability to learn anything? Will he speak? Will he be able to do anything in school? And so we had this missed expectation. But that's not all that is part of that dream that dies, and that is that you have missed experiences. Missed experiences. As a parent, when you have a kid that enters your family, you kind of are hoping that there's a number of things that are going to happen, that you're going to be able to do together, or you're going to be able to watch them do. I remember when, our oldest was, my oldest son was 21 years old. He was in college. He was buying his first car. He was planning to attend medical school and seeing if he could pull that off. He was sharing his dreams about having his own house and having his life. He was talking to me about girls that he was serious with and what kind of man he wanted to be. Okay? That's the kind of stuff that we kind of look forward to as dads, don't we? But that doesn't happen. That experience that never happened with Micah. So at 21 with Micah, I'm having conversations like making sure that trying to convince him to sleep in his bed instead of the bathtub or the closet. I'm trying to help him understand that when he washes dishes, he needs to actually use soap and take the food off the dish and not just rinse it under water and put it with food back up in the cupboard. Right? Those experiences are gone, and they'll never be there again. And so if we don't learn to accept that we have suffered a loss, and we integrate that into how we live, that's part of our relationship, part of our life with that child, then it can keep hitting us and knocking us on our heels every time that it happens. And we want to be able to deal with that. So life continued to evolve. At from 2.5 to 5, our life was pretty volatile. So Micah's got fetal alcohol syndrome. He's on the moderate to severe end of the spectrum. So he's got all the facial features, and he's got the full extent of the behavioral side of FAS. And during from 2.5 to 5 is when his behavior started showing up along with his delays. And I would be getting calls at work saying, honey, you need to come to Kroger in aisle 9. Mike is having what we ended up terming a neurological hijacking, is what we called it. And I can't get close to him. He's tearing the aisle up. I need you to get here and help me out. It was during this time that we took him for an evaluation to school, and And during the evaluation, which you had set it all up, you had thought through everything to make it as doable as possible. And you had prepped the people who were doing the evaluation, that they were ready for what it is that they were going to be walking into, and that they knew the trigger points. And you see what I'm saying? The list, we go through the list. And yet, even then, in that evaluation, Micah, boom, it hits. He spirals off. He's just gone. And before he can tear up the room and hurt anybody, I'm scooping up this, 4 or 5 year old kid, and I'm just holding on to him. And I just remember walking out of that room and down that hallway, and as Mike is sitting there just beating on my face and spitting on me and screaming and hollering, and I'm just whispering to him, "It's okay. Dad's got you, Mike. Dad's got you." And it's then that we discovered pretty quickly that Micah was taking the lion's share of everything in our family. He was getting he was getting the time, the effort, he was getting the attention, the discipline, the special treatment. He was getting everything. And we discovered our next concept. And that is, our home was quickly becoming child-centric versus being marriage-centric. Child-centric versus marriage-centric. Now, what does that mean? Child-centric. In a child-centric home, the child becomes the center of the universe. Everything revolves around them. When someone has an idea, the first thing that goes through your mind is, well, how is that going to affect this? And the yeses and the nos come from how it's going to affect them and what's going to happen with them. It typically comes at the expense of other family members. You know what I'm saying? You been there? And so what we have to do is we often have to meet their needs, but often we end up trying to meet their wants. Okay? And what many times their wants are, and I don't have time to dig into this, so hopefully I can just give you the surface and this will make sense. The wants that we extend onto our kids with special needs, we have found many times are not necessarily their wants, they're our wants for them. And we end up putting burdens on ourselves that are, in general, impossible to achieve. But we keep hoping and wishing and praying that this will happen for them. And so we think the more we try and the harder we do it and the longer we try, that it will somehow make it appear. And you can see how that can suck up all the resources and all the energy. But with our special needs kids, we have to remember that one of our primary goals should be that we are helping them get ready for their life, not the life we've lived. Remember, it's different. Their life is going to be different than ours. Their needs are different. Their experiences are going to be different. Their life is going to be different. And we need to get them prepared for their life. And I'm going to come back to this. In our last breakout session, we'll talk a little bit about where we are 20 years into this process. So, it's easy to understand how it happens. It's subtle and progressive. And why? Because it starts out of necessity, right? Our special needs kids need more time. Especially when you first get the diagnosis or you first figure out that something is wrong. What do? You jump in with both feet and you got to figure out what the heck is happening. And is there anything I can do? Or what should we be doing? Or is anybody else going through this? And all effort is put on there. And there's nothing wrong with that. We needed to do that. But it's that we go there and we stay there. That's the difference. What drives us is that, what do? We say, well, they're disabled. they have a disability. They deserve to have more attention and more special care. With Micah, I'll give you kind of a sneak peek at where he's at. So I told you about the fact that we're trying to get our kids ready for their life. Micah right now lives in Northwest Arkansas, and he's got his own apartment. He's got staff that are with him 24/7 because he'll never live on his own. But what we have done for the last 20 years is to get him ready for what he's doing right now. Living his life as an adult. Being able to do all that he is capable of doing within the confines of what he can do, that we're trying to let him achieve all that he can do. And we're still his legal guardians. We're still very involved in his life, which can be attested to by sometimes the 27 phone calls that we get a day. I think that's the record so far. I don't know where Marisa went, but I think the record is 27 phone calls in one day. The other thing that happens about why we become child-centric is that if we don't care for them, who will? You know, there's these basic realities that happen. We go, who? And I go, guys, hear me. Where I'm not talking about care. There's a difference between caring for our kid and making him the center of the universe. Those are two different things. I don't know if you've ever thought about that, but I challenge you. You can put it in your notes. Think about that. There's a difference between those two things. So, what should we be chasing then? My encouragement to you, to what I'm proposing to you, is that you work really hard at keeping your home marriage-centric. Marriage-centric. And so what does that mean? It means your marriage is the priority in your home. I believe that's the way it was designed. Okay? So, why do I think that? Well, just a quick list. Marriage was created by God. It was intended for life. It's different than any other. Than any other lifelong responsibility. It's the cornerstone of family and civilization. It comes above all earthly relationships. It grows deeper than any other relationship, and it should outlast any other relationship that you have. That's a pretty significant relationship. But how does this work with a special needs kid? How do these two things go together? Marriage is not self-serving. That's how it works. Even though your marriage is first, it's not there to serve you. Because out of marriage is you put others ahead of yourself. It's all about you, but it's not all about you. Does that make sense? Okay? And if we lose sight of that, it's a paradox that we have to be able to process. All right. Child-centric, marriage-centric. So when Micah was 5, we finally found some help. So we had gone a little over 2 years of absolute chaos. I mean, we had no idea what was going on. It was horrible, very, very difficult. We were living minute to minute sometimes. We still didn't have a diagnosis, but 12 milligrams of Seroquel changed our life. Okay? We got the medication, and we gave it to him one afternoon, and he slept for the first time in 5 years. And we got up the next morning. He got up from a night's sleep, and we watched him learn for the first time. It was one of the most amazing days we had ever had. I mean, we go, oh my gosh, this is Micah. He was in control. He could listen. He could respond. He could do all these things. And we thought, okay, maybe we've gotten to a point. But that wasn't that wasn't to be. Because I remember taking him, we had a season, we went through, 5 elementary schools. I remember this one season we were taking him to a school, and sometimes I would take him, sometimes Marisa and I would take him together, sometimes she would take him, probably most of the time she would take him alone. And we would spend every morning was scripted, right? You were doing everything you could to make sure that you didn't hit any trigger points and that you were getting him ready and that he would be in a good mood so that you could get him to school so he wouldn't jump out of the car window on the way to school. And we would get him there, and Marisa came up with a game called Yellow Car where you'd count the yellow cars you could see, and he loved playing that game. And then you'd get him to school, and he would absolutely go ballistic, and he would be laying in the back of the Suburban holding on to the chairs of the seats, screaming and hollering. It would take 2 security guards literally dragging him out of the truck, and both of them grabbing onto him and taking him into the back of the school, screaming and hollering, and Mom driving home in tears. We hadn't hit a season where things were going to be better. And our new paradigm was unavoidable, and we realized that this was not going away. And for the first time, we had to accept the fact that this was for a lifetime, not a season. And that's the third concept. Lifetime versus a season. Our typical kids go through seasons, right? They're infants, they're toddlers, they go to school, they're in that age when they actually like their parents and stuff still until they're 10 or 11 years old. It's the golden years. Maybe not quite that old anymore. That probably ends at like 4. I can't remember what it is. It's been too long. But anyway, our situation is different because this isn't a season. This is forever, as they say in The Sandlot. Forever. And we don't want to accept that. We try to live like it's not going to happen that way. Why is it important to understand that and to accept it and to quit fighting it? Because we can factor it into our everyday lives, and we don't have to carry this burden of, I thought today was going to be. We don't consciously do this, but in our subconscious, we're like, I was hoping that maybe this day or this month or this year, something was going to change and we were going to move on to something else. But it's the same. It's the same as last year. It's the same as last month. Because we're still fighting and we're hoping for something that's not going to happen. And so we have to accept that. Second thing is related to lifetime and season, and James talked about this in the introduction. We get so upset at people saying stupid things to us and being offended by them. It's like, I'm sorry, is that still going on? No, yeah, they've still got their autism cold. Yeah, it's just we haven't, the medicine hasn't kicked in yet. I want to give some context to this really quickly. This is what we've learned. Nobody can understand what we go through. We do. I can walk up to any of you and you can listen to my story and you can go, I understand your story a little bit. And I'll go, I know you do. Who else does? Nobody. Your best friend doesn't understand it like you do. So why do we hold them hostage to understanding it? They can't. The most well-intentioned, loving people in your family or your friends that want to can't do it. Why? Think about this. If I asked you before it happened, before your new reality started, and I told you the story that you've lived for the last 5, 6, 10, 25 years, if I told you that story and said, you're going to live that story the next 25 years, what would you have told me? Say it in unison. No way. You might have said, I won't do it. Right? If someone, thankfully, God doesn't let us see our future. We would have quit a long time ago. We couldn't do it. Our friends have to eat the whole elephant in one bite. How did we eat it? Sometimes a minute at a time is the only way we make it, is a minute at a time. So guys, it's a lifetime. Don't expect other people to be able to understand it. Give them grace. Love them for at least even recognizing that you're in a season, and let it go. Don't carry that burden with you anymore. So almost simultaneously to that concept is we learned another one. I don't remember the exact situation. It's happened multiple times. It could have been after Micah had threatened his whole family to kill everybody. As he was going through a neurological hijacking, his mom approached him very calmly and lovingly to try to get him to calm down. And he proceeded to assault her with the most vile language and hateful things that anybody could ever say and should never be said to a mother, and broke her heart. It could have been after I had to take Micah down and restrain him as he's standing there screaming and trying to kick and spitting in my face and telling me what he's going to do after I let him up and vowing to kill everyone who loves him most. It could have been after we called the police because he was getting so violent and things had gotten so bad that he was a threat to his family and his neighbors, and we had something to happen, so we called the police to help transport him to acute care. Whatever it was, the thought was the same, and that was Marisa would sit there and she would say to me, she'd say, honey, we're doing a good thing. We're doing the right thing. Micah's ours. We brought him into our home and we're doing the best we can. Why can't it just get fixed? Why can't it just be better than this? And that same story is, we each have that, and it's different for each of us, but it's the same, right? It's whatever story is your story of why the whys that you want to ask. But here's the reality. Is we're tempted to chase the illusion that we should have it all. For some, it's just human nature. It's human nature. We're discontent as people. We're just flat out discontent. It's been proven in our society, if nowhere else, that there is no end to what we want, right? No matter what we have. And so we have to be careful with that. And I've only got a couple minutes left, but basically we got to be careful of buying into what I call a conventional fantasy. And that is that our culture tells us this is what reality should look like. This is how everybody lives. This is what everybody does. They go on 3 vacations a year and they do this and they go to a sandals resort, every other month and stuff like that. That's how life is. It's like, what? Oh, I'm the only one that doesn't get that? We can't buy into that. The last one is, I can't tell you the story, but suffice it to say, when we had to make our first decision to put Micah in residential care, we traveled to Northwest Montana, and we did what any parent, any normal, typical, loving parent would think, and that is the unconscionable. And we left our 11-year-old son with complete strangers 1,300 miles away from us in the woods. When we drove away that day, for the next step, we stayed at some friend's house up in Montana for us to decompress. We had planned on that, and it had been the end of a very, very, very long time season of the worst ever. And for 72 hours, I didn't know where Marisa was, even though she was sitting right next to me. She was gone. And one of the things that we realized through that is that how important it is for us to have oneness in our marriage, because life will naturally drift us towards isolation. Okay? God putting us in a marriage, and I know everybody here maybe isn't married, and so this is something to kind of put in your, in the hopper for at some point in time. But for those of you who are married, it is it's God's way of putting two people together to mutually complete one another. It's as Rocky said. When his brother-in-law, his eventual brother-in-law asked him, he goes, what is it that you see in Adrian? He goes, we fill gaps. He goes, what do you mean? He goes, well, I got gaps and she got gaps, and together we fill gaps. It's exactly how God created marriage to be. Okay? Is we fill gaps. And so we need to make sure that we're committed to each other. All right. Let me put a wrap on this opening session here. And that is, I want to leave you with hope. Okay? We learn those concepts the hard way. I know there's probably people that have been through harder stuff. Some people not as quite as hard as ours. But ours was pretty extreme. And we fleshed these things out. Micah turned 21 in June. He's on Arkansas waiver. Lives in an apartment. We didn't think we would ever reach this stage. Trust me, we never thought we would reach this stage. And we've gone from calls with most of his life, wherever he was being cared for, or wherever he was going to school or whatever, the phone would ring and we would see the phone number, it was going to be another crisis that we had to deal with. Today, I just got a call 10 minutes before we came here. Hey, Popso! What's up, Micah? Hey, I was wondering if you could turn my internet on till like 12:30 today. I want to be on the internet. So we get calls and it's like, hey, Daddy-O. Hey, Mama. How you doing? Can you send me $20? This is what I did today. And our life isn't full of crisis calls right now, which is just amazing for us. Now, before you think, so you're out of the woods, so it's easy for you to get up there and, tell us how we should be living, because we're still in the middle of it. Guys, we're not out of the woods. Since Mike has been on waiver, Mike has been to jail twice. Okay? None of my kids were supposed to go to jail. We have to navigate many conversations, bridge many gaps between his wants and what reality is. How many times he's studied for his driver's license, Mike, you're not going to drive, buddy, but we try to navigate that so we don't squash his dreams. And as we look back at our journey so far, 3 things have been key. Okay? 3 things. And this is how we'll end. Number 1 is we have persevered and plotted. Every day, sometimes just a minute, literally a minute at a time, but we have never given up, and you've just always done the next thing. And I can tell you this, we did all that not knowing our future, but sometimes not knowing the future is the hope we need, because things happen. You guys all can tell stories of something that happened that you never expected. Okay? Those things happen. Number 2, We have processed and accepted the realities that I shared with you this morning, and we still apply them today. Even in the season that we're in right now, we are still living those every day. Not perfectly, but we're still living them. And number 3 is we get our strength to do the seemingly impossible with Micah in our marriage through our faith. Our faith is the thing that is the undergirder of everything that we do. So after 21 years, I'm just here to tell you, there is hope. There is hope. There's a plan for this. God knows what's going on. Stay in it. Keep going. Hopefully some information that we shared with you this morning through some of our story has helped you. And in our breakouts today, if you choose to come to them, I know there's a lot of great options. We're going to talk about communication. So communication is a big part of how you apply this stuff. And then in one of them, we're going to tell you about what we call the Monumental Mother's Day and how we applied this stuff in a real live everyday situation that we've had to go through. So thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Thank you guys. And if you need a seat, now there's some seats around. Please feel free to grab a spot. I'm going to sit here, and I hope you can see our panelists. But you guys, first of all, welcome. We are so glad that you are here. I know we have parents in the room ready to hear, but we are going to start, and we'll maybe go left to right. Would you guys please introduce yourself, maybe your name, how old you are, where you live, just kind of tell us who you are. Anything you want to share about yourself in general, and Alex, we can start with you.
Do I need to stand up?
If you want to stand, you can stand. If you want to sit, you can sit. Just talk loud if you could, because we're in informal. This is family style.
My name is Alex Wayne Ashcraft. It's about to be Alex Prometheus Bethay. I'm about to get adopted, but I'm 16 years old. I've had autism, but it's not always a default. You can use it to your advantage it can be a thing that turns bad to good. Autism isn't always bad. It can be good.
Absolutely. Thank you, Alex. Yeah.
Good morning. I am Ian Kerr. I'm from the Art Partner Conway. And yes, I have autism. Now, autism is not a bad thing. It's a good thing. Their brains are born different than other people do. The community, they have trouble with talking as a group. They have kind of trouble finding things, like a knife, or their lost kitty cat. But there's hope on that. And the reason they can come into a pleasant teenage to a wealthy man.
Ian, how old are you?
I'm old. I am 17 years old this year.
Today, it is Ian's birthday! Yeah! Thank you for sharing on your birthday, Ian. Thank you so much. Eric?
Morning, everybody. My name is Eric. I am from Conway. I live in Conway. Originally, I'm from Pine Bluff. I moved to Conway back in 2003. I'm actually 34. I just found out I had Asperger's a little over 10 years ago, 11 years ago, and I had tendencies of it going back to I was a kid, but it didn't really stop me from getting 2 degrees, a bachelor's and a master's in college.
Yeah, Eric!
I now work. I work 2 jobs, one full time, one part time. So it just keeps me going, and I'm glad I can share my story with you guys today. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Eric. Tim, introduce yourself.
I'm Tim. I'm 19. I'm originally from Conway, so I moved to Little Rock not that long ago.
Very good. 19-year-old Tim from now living in Little Rock. And Carly?
I'm Carly Luck. I'm 34 years old, and I'm from Cabot, Arkansas. And I'm proud to have my own. I'm proud to have Down syndrome.
Okay, thank you, Carly. All right, you guys, we are so thankful you're here, and you've seen these questions, so you know that they're all a little bit different. But I think as parents, I have a 12-year-old, we love hearing from individuals that are a little bit older, just an insight into your life. Everybody's different. Nobody, regardless of diagnosis or individual hair color or anything else, is the same. But I'll just ask one or two questions. You can answer either one of these, and you don't have to go in order. But I would just say, what do you think are some of your strengths, or what do you like to do in your free time? This will just help everybody get to know you better. So, I don't know, Alex, what do you like to do in your free time? What do you think are some things you're good at? Either one of those questions.
I play Minecraft and I do Legos and play with Transformers, but the reason why I do that is because us kids need to express our creativity, and Minecraft and Legos and stuff helps with that. And also it helps calm down the mind. So
Very good. That's awesome, yeah. And what about you, birthday man?
I have a strength that is called faith. And I was having faith of God that I believe the first time I have autism that God thinks saying at me, it's not the end of the world. You're born so you know what it'd be like having autism.
Good. So good. It's awesome. Thank you.
So what I like to do, I like sports. I love just, I guess, being around sports. I try to play as much as I can, but sometimes injuries, things like that, they always happen. But I do like going to UCA sports since they're more convenient and everything. And then I try I try to read every now and then. I try to read like inspirational books. Sometimes maybe like a mysterious book or two every now and then, just to switch it up. But I also like reading. I've been trying to read the Bible more online or on my phone through my app. So I've also tried to do those things, and I don't know. It's fun. I like it.
Really good, Eric. Thanks. Tim, what do you like to do in your free time, or what are your strengths? Either one of those.
In my free time, I just like to play my guitar
Oh, yeah.
and talk to my friends on Xbox.
Yep.
No.
We should have brought your guitar. You could have played for
I
us.
could have.
That would have been awesome.
And this coming spring, I'll be starting baseball again.
Oh, good. Yeah. Awesome. Okay, Carly? What do you like to do in your free time?
I love reading and cooking.
Reading, cook. What's your favorite thing to cook?
Sweets.
Sweets. Me too. Me too. It's really good. Okay. Guys, we have a lot of parents and grandparents in the room. Any of you can answer this, but what is something that your family members do that help you feel loved and accepted, kind of just for who you are? Maybe we'll start the other side. Carly, what do your family and friends do that help you feel loved and accepted?
They support me and they believe in what we do.
Good. Anybody else? Yes, Ann.
My family, since I have my first autism, they take care of me a lot, including my brother as well. The matter of fact is, it's about sharing and love and kindness. But I know I got a lot of therapy, and it's more importantly my family.
Good.
And evenly, I am alarm clock.
I think all of us kids are, bro.
Good.
My daughter's.
All right. Anybody else on just something that, yes, Alex?
My family supports me and helps me out, but the thing that I like most about them is that they care no matter what. Even if you don't care, they still care. They try to treat me as much as a normal kid as they can.
Because you're a normal kid. You're awesome.
Yes.
Yeah, I love it.
Everybody
Yeah.
has their own strengths and weaknesses,
Absolutely.
but sometimes those weaknesses can be your strengths.
That's really great. That leads us into our next question. And this is a big one. We did a panel a couple of years ago, and I felt like this was so helpful. So just what you're comfortable in sharing. Guys, this is honest conversation. What have been some of your biggest obstacles or challenges? Like, what are some challenges you've had in life? And then maybe how have you overcome those? I mean, what self-identified do you think, or what are some challenges that you faced or face? And yeah, how?
I used to get bullied a lot. I mean, sure, some of my friends do pick on me at times, but they just do that for fun. But they could tell when I'm getting upset or angry, so they know when to stop. And they, like, even the death of some family has been an obstacle, but all I know is that they're there for me, and I bet my mom is up there listening to me right now and being so proud. So.
Yeah, she is. It's amazing. Yes. Ian.
My biggest challenge, same that as hell. But I'm supporting the people just have been bullied, and they're having getting picked on, and I will be there with them and tell them autism is not a bad thing. It's a really good thing. That's why God put you in this life. They put you on this life because you're special. No matter what, you're different, and how your brain works different, all that is what's in your heart. Is your heart. Is the only way that love belongs in here.
So you've been through my identical bachelor's and master's program, which I love. So I want to know, like, from a college perspective or growing up, what have been some of your challenges or obstacles, and how'd you overcome them?
Well, growing up, it was, I felt like there were good times and then there were bad times. I got bullied, as a kid, and, and really there were a lot of teachers that didn't know, they knew what was going on with me, but they didn't really try. I don't want to say that they wanted to ignore it. I just don't think that they knew what, and I didn't know. So, I mean, it was tough, really growing up. And then, also my parents didn't know. I think they thought it was so kind of like growing up, teenage phase, you know how things are, go through puberty, that kind of thing. But when it was time for me to go to college, I wanted to stay in Pine Bluff just because I was familiar with it, but I think my mom had a feeling that if I went somewhere else, that if I went to a new environment, things like that, and try to learn different things, then I definitely think I would thrive there. And I would say I have. And a lot of it, I did a lot of it on my own without really fully being diagnosed into my 20s. So, I mean, I think it was just a lot of perseverance, a lot of prayers, just a lot of patience, really, just to get through, some of the most difficult times of my life. But luckily for me, I mean, I had great friends, great people to connect with, and they, welcomed me into their lives with open arms, and it's stuff that that I will never forget for the rest of my life.
That's awesome. Tim or Carly, any of the challenges you faced or how you've overcome them?
I overcome back surgery.
Back surgery, wow, yeah.
I had scoliosis.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a big overcoming thing.
I had to get my gallbladder removed,
Gallbladder removed? Yeah.
gallstones.
Oh, man. Okay, so, guys, now that you're like here in your teenage years, your adult life, what is something that you wish your parents or your teachers would have known to help you when some of us parents, we have preschool, elementary, middle school age kids. Is there anything you can speak to? We talked about bowling, and that's always scary for us as parents, but regarding that or anything else, is it just like if you could go back and articulate now to your parents or your teachers, like, I wish they would have known this to be able to help me? Anybody have thoughts on that? Yes.
I went through a lot, but we didn't know that I had autism, and I went through so many facilities and all that because they thought that it was just anger problems and stuff. But they didn't know it at all. Nobody did. But thankfully people at ASH were able to observe and diagnose, and apparently their diagnosis took a couple times, but eventually they got the right diagnosis, and then we all knew what I was going through and how to deal with it. And even if you don't know if the kid is going through stuff, and if it's just behavior problems or stuff, us kids do have a mind of our own, I'm gonna admit that, but sometimes the mind of our own is actually trying to tell others that something is wrong and that it doesn't know what that thing is, because sometimes, like, take me for example, I always thought I was just this bad kid until when I discharged from ASH. When my mom died, my entire life turned around because she basically saved me from being in foster care my whole life, and without her I wouldn't have been adopted, and I wouldn't have been with a great family, and I wouldn't even be here helping other people out.
So good, Alex. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. So I think I'm hearing this, and you can head nod yes or no, and I know Eric and I talked about it this morning. You're saying that one of the things, so the question is, what is something you wish your parents or teachers would have known? You're saying it was helpful to you to get a diagnosis because
Yes.
it brought some answers. Eric, you want to elaborate on that? You
Well,
kind of said.
my parents didn't really know that I had Asperger's. I know when I was in high school at one point, I think I was, I had to go to school, and they had to come in and talk with the vice principal or with me or something, and then I guess they didn't really I don't think they meant to sweep it under the rug and stuff. I think that I think they probably was worried about me for sure accepting it, and then they were also just worried as parents that they had failed. And I don't think they failed. You look at all of our we all got degrees, we've all graduated from college, we're all doing successful in our own way. So for a little while I was upset. I was, angry towards them, but, they tried. They tried. They've done. I know they've done everything possible to make me, and my siblings have great lives. I mean, they've been married over 30 years, so to me, I think I can't stay upset just because I didn't, I had to figure this autism and Asperger's thing on my own. I mean, I think the reality is sometimes you don't want to accept, the reality that is. So, but yeah, I mean, we have I have a great relationship with them. I know my mom and we had texted a little bit yesterday. So, I mean, I think we're fine. We're fine now.
Carly or Tim, anything you can think of you wish your parents or teachers would have known when you were younger, just to help you as a person? Either one of you. Carly, you have anything?
Well, with me, my family, we need to have a little bit more patience with me.
Needed to have more patience, don't we all?
Yeah.
Any
Yeah,
tips,
all of
Carly?
us.
How do we do that? I mean,
All of us kids need to fill up our meters of patience with the parents, and they need to fill theirs up with us.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Well,
Yes, especially them too.
Well, exactly. Since I saw the armadillo about like 2 days ago, it was digging all my holes in the front lawn. If it's turn on and the next time I saw him again, I'm gonna turn a corner of the ball and use it as a bowling ball.
Hey, either that or kick them around like a soccer ball.
They don't survive. They don't survive the impact.
Either that or
Ian
turn them into
or
a basketball.
Tim, or do you guys do just a couple more questions? I wish we had a lot longer to do this, but anything else that any of you can think of, you just wish that your teachers would have known when you were younger, or anything you wish your parents would have known? I think those answers were great. If not, we'll move on.
I think
Yeah.
my teachers probably, I had, teachers that were there a long time before I was, that were, on the verge of, retiring for, but I think,
Almost at their breaking point.
true, yeah.
No patient meters.
Well, I think that, and I came from like one of the worst school districts in Arkansas. So I think the truth is, I think, we could have been more patient. And I think that we had a lot of, really smart, a lot of smart art students. I think I felt like they had, paid more attention to them than someone like me who, was smart, but, had tendencies that I guess people didn't know until now, and to think that 20 years ago, autism wasn't as
Popular.
big, popular, or as big as it is now.
Yeah.
So, I can understand people, not being certainly sure about someone, especially someone like me,
My
but
brother, he has autism.
but people need to understand, hey, we're trying just as much as everybody else. Sometimes we may need that little extra push or two. That's all it is.
Guys, I got my last question. This is good. And I know several of you have spoken to an autism and Down syndrome diagnosis, but a lot of the things as a parent, it doesn't matter what you're diagnosed with, it doesn't matter your functioning level, the same information is really helpful to all of us. And so the last question I want to leave with, if you have this, and we'll go right to left. I really love to hear from all of you, if you're comfortable, is what advice would you give to a parent or a grandparent or a caregiver who has a child that's recently been diagnosed with a special need or is raising a child with any kind of special need or autism or Down syndrome? Any advice you would give to like the people in the room? What would you share with us? Any thoughts? Ian.
Okay, well, Some people, like their parents, have a child diagnosed with autism. It's they having trouble having trouble finding a spoon for his soup. You can ask him. You can show him where they located. So the more you do that, the better they identify where they're located at. It happens to me. People, their parents, and they're actually only child and they have autism. That doesn't mean that's not the end of the world. It means it's a good thing. It's a
Advantage.
It's a advantage. It's a lot more complicated, and it's very important that autism are not forgotten. They are still around and they are still special. You know about your child. Your autism kid might go through other things like angry, depressed, silliness,
Sad, happiness.
into happiness is the most important. If your child have diagnosed with autism, tell them if you are special, and you will be special because God created you for other things.
Perfect.
He wants to see you, the whole world, what it feels.
Awesome, Ian. Thank you for that. Amazing.
welcome.
Other things. What advice would you give to parents raising kids with special needs or recently diagnosed if they're new on the journey? Like just anything you cherish. Tim, any thoughts? Or any other anything you'd want to tell our crowd?
Well, my advice, if they like sports, sign them up for Miracle League.
Miracle League, yeah, baseball is awesome. Carly, what advice you have?
I would say make sure you have a lot of fun with them. You want to bring in that special moment and make sure it's a precious part of your life.
That's really good, Carly.
Thank you.
She said have fun with your kids and make sure.
Eric,
Eric,
a little patience.
Well, first off, this is about I think my 5th time doing the young adults panel, and I think for it's special for me because I get to tell my story and my my revelation to to anyone that is going through it. And I know for all you parents, I mean, I'm not a parent myself yet, but hopefully this inspires you. This makes you feel good that your kids can we all can do anything we want to do. It's it's really important to to just be with them, and also try to help them guide through life, whether no matter what they want to do in life, because they're able to to strive to achieve whatever they want, just as much as anybody that doesn't have autism or Asperger's. I think I leave with this knowing that hopefully I may have helped, all of us may have helped anyone out there. But definitely I think, just never give up on them, and always be there for them no matter what, because, I mean, I'm thankful for great parents, but I'm also thankful for having the friends that I've had growing up in Conway, and just having this opportunity to come speak here and tell my story. So I thank all you guys for listening to us. Like I said, I hope this inspires everyone, you know, not only yourselves, but your kids, any kids that are here.
Any last thoughts, Alex? You the only one that didn't answer that one. Any advice you'd give to parents raising kids with different special needs?
I've already given a lot of advice, but I do want to leave y'all with one last thing. No matter what, like I've said this 1,000 times, autism is an advantage. Us kids always love to be playful and fun, but the one thing that we really want to do and have always wanted to do and were made to do is to love and make people feel better and build relationships with people that we don't even know. You know, spread the love no matter what. Life isn't going to be over anytime soon, so you might as well make the best of it.
And on that note, oh yes, Ian. It's his
Okay.
birthday. We're going to end with Ian, the
Yes.
birthday man, on his final note.
Okay. Now, on my birthday, for at least 4 years since I'm about in Florida, and I was about being baptized until after Christmas. Now, never told you children to get on one of those yellow dump trucks. And this could happen in the future without warning. Now, I was on the truck and my brother, this good old being myself. Anyway, so it's really simple. I was on the dump truck like this, about ready to go. So my brother pushed me so hard, I'm about ready not to flip, but actually I went to yelling, saying, Yahoo! And also there's a big problem. There's an actual wall, like, directly bang. Guess what? I thought it can lead a hole in it. It was, but actually, I was like pretty knocked out. I got a little bruise up here and a little bleed come down. And my mom said, "Oh heaven, God, why?" Not on it before baptism, well, my action pastor comes in well, he's got baptized by the wall. Okay, so imagine if I got that dump. If Isaac, if he got strong muscle like him right now, he's gonna shove me on the wall until I turn into an actual torpedo hit a battleship.
So you're saying your result. You guys bring me joy. Can we give our panel a hand? Good job,